Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about Madam Web. It was just released yesterday, and I'm going to give you my recap and review of the film. So, Cassandra Webb, Cassie Webb, who in the comics is Madam Web, and in the comics she's elderly, so it's a little weird that, I guess they wanted to make this an action movie, so they cast, a younger person in their 30s. But anyway, she's a person who is an EMT, and she was born in the Peruvian jungle to a woman who went there to study spiders, but who ends up getting shot by the villain of the movie, who was after this particular spider that she was trying to find once she finds it, because it apparently can give you all kinds of powers. And the only reason the baby survives is because the spider-powered mythical people of the jungle step in and make sure the baby is born alive, but they can't save the mother. So that was 1973. So fast forward to 2003, Cassie, as she is known, is a paramedic, and she has a near-death experience. Well, she actually dies trying to rescue someone whose car crashed over the edge of a bridge, and she's revived by none other than Uncle Ben in his youth, who is her paramedic partner. And from then on, she starts having visions of the future. And at first, she doesn't realize what's going on, but eventually she has a vision of these three girls being killed on a train by the guy who killed her mother, who, by the way, also has not aged in 30 years. I guess because he injected himself with spider stuff, which is why he has powers in the movie. And he's after them because he had a vision that in the future, they kill him as their future spider superhero selves. And so he's trying to track them down to kill them before he gets killed by them. And that's the basic crux of the movie. The main character, Cassie Webb, intervenes on the train and saves the girls, and then she protects them throughout the rest of the movie as this guy keeps trying to find and kill them. And she uses her ability to see little snippets of the future to help her do this. And there's a part of the film where she leaves the kids with Uncle Ben for a week and goes to Peru to try to learn more about what's happening to her and what's going on. And she sees the guy that headed up the amazing spider people there who saved her mother, and she learns a little bit from him about what happened. And apparently her mother was seeking a treatment for her own illness, and that's why she went to the jungle while 9 months pregnant. So that's the basic plot of the film. What did I think of it? Well, this movie's been getting a lot of negative press since the trailer dropped. People saying it looked like it was going to be awful, that it was going to be awful, that the ticket sales didn't look good in advance, and then the Rotten Tomatoes score wasn't good. It was in the basement, actually. And I'm like, oh, come on, it can't be that bad. I'm going to give it a watch, and I'll just go into it with an open mind and make my own opinion. It's a movie. Let's see if it's any good. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not the worst movie ever made. It has some interesting stuff going on, but it's ultimately very forgettable and just not very good. First of all, the trailer makes you think that you're going to see the three kids be their spider superhero selves in the movie. And you do for like a split second twice in the 2-hour movie. And the cuts are so quick of them in their costumes and doing the thing that you barely register it. In fact, what you see in the trailer of them in their super spider suits is about all that's in the movie of them in their spider super suits, because those things happen in the future and you only see them in flash forwards. There's no part of the movie where they become these heroes and act as these heroes to fight crime or stop the bad guy or whatever. That's not in the movie. The whole movie is literally Cassie Webb, who herself never suits up until the last frame of the movie in any kind of superhero thing. She just spends the movie hiding them and running with them from the bad guy. And it's not like that can't make for a good movie. I mean, it's essentially the plot of Terminator, right? But the thing is, it's not well done. From the trailer, you don't know that these women are teenagers. I did not know that. in the movie, they're teenagers. One of them is under 18 for sure. And they're all played by people in their 20s and not like 21, 22. One of the actresses is 26. And, that's a common thing. They get adults to play kids sometimes. But like usually it's 18, 19 playing 15, 16, not 26 playing 17. And it's painfully obvious, at least in one case, that these are adults trying to pass themselves off as teenagers. And it's terrible. I didn't think that any of them did a particularly good job with the material they were given, aside from the whole not looking like teenagers thing. And I didn't think that the lead actress did a good job of acting. She basically played herself, it seemed to me. Like I've watched her in interviews and on talk shows and stuff, and she was playing herself, basically. And they tried to make her complex by giving her this whole thing of, well, she's a reluctant hero and she's kind of a dick. Like in the movie, she's maladaptive to children. They show one part where she's not good with kids. She doesn't get kids and she's kind of like aloof. But then she turns into this person that cares about these kids. But it's very surface. And she just comes off as one-dimensional. They all come off as one-dimensional, really and truly. I mean, there's a range of emotions in parts, across the movie that the characters go through, but it's very surface, it's like you can see the acting, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just, and it's not their fault really. I don't know. I said they didn't do a good job. There are limitations of the material that they were given, and I think maybe they did the best they could with the material, but it comes off as bad acting, and the writing is definitely not great in terms of the dialogue, and a lot of dumb stuff happens. Like she's a paramedic, as I was saying, the main character, and there's at least one scene where she's performing her paramedic duties, and it's just laughable the way they depicted her doing this. She's doing CPR on a guy, but she gets a vision during it, and so she's distracted, and they show her being distracted twice. Once in the future that she sees, because she's seeing and hearing things around her in the vision, and it distracts her from this activity, right? The compressions. And then when she comes out of the vision and she's seeing the vision unfold in real time, she gets distracted again and she's going. It's like no paramedic worth their salt would behave that way with a patient's life in their hands. It was terrible. I don't know why they didn't just have her bandaging a guy and get distracted, or examining a lady and getting distracted. She's in the middle of chest compressions. It's so bad. And then in the next moment, her boss gets into an accident leaving the scene, and she runs to the ambulance that he was driving, or her coworker, and she pulls him out and immediately starts doing chest compressions, not on his sternum where he's supposed to, but like right here. And while he's bleeding from the area, which she's just making it worse, right? Doesn't check his pulse, doesn't check to see if he's breathing, doesn't check to see anything, just immediately starts doing chest compressions. That's not what you do. I'm not even a paramedic and I know this. That's not what you do. You check the pulse, you check the breathing, you don't just pull them and no. And not here, and not when they're spurting blood everywhere, when they're bleeding. I don't think. So it was bad. Then there's the part where she rescues the kids from the diner, the scene in the trailer, when they're under attack from the bad guy. And what they don't show you in the trailer is that she gets into the diner by ramming a taxi through it that she stole. She steals a taxi at one point to get away with the kids. Then the kids wind up in a diner and she has to rescue them. And she drives a taxi through the front of the diner. Not sure why, but she does. And it messes up the front of the taxi really bad, which is fine. But then she keeps driving the taxi. Like, okay, it's still drivable, whatever. She drives away from the scene with the taxi. But then anywhere she goes in a car for the rest of the movie, except when she steals an ambulance later, she's driving around in this car. And she already knows that people are looking for her because of the incident on the train. The guy on the train ended up hurting some cops while he was trying to get to the kids. And the kids at one point didn't know what was going on. So they said, this woman's kidnapping us. So the cops and everybody are looking for the kids and looking for Cassie, because they don't know about the spider guy. They somehow didn't see him, right? So she's driving around in this badly damaged, bright frickin' yellow taxi cab. While she's on the lam. No, you don't drive around in a very obviously damaged yellow car that would stand out. You don't do that. So that was a dumb. Another thing that stuck out was this scene in the diner before the kids get rescued and before they get menaced. A patron of the diner recognizes them as kids who are being looked for by the authorities because they're possible abduction victims. But he realizes this because he sees a story about it in the print edition of the Daily Bugle. Now, it's 2003, so they didn't really have cell phones, I guess. They weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. They weren't really smartphones, maybe. I don't remember. So that might be why they went with a newspaper. They definitely didn't want to do it where it's on the TV in the diner, because then the kids would have seen it and they would have been like, oh crap, and they would have left. But the choice that they went with was to have him see it in the paper, which, okay, but when did they have time to put out an edition of the Daily Bugle in the mere hours between the time that the scene went down at the train station and the time they were in the diner? It's hours later, if that long. No, they didn't put out an edition of the Daily Bugle in between. Now, sometimes newspapers would print extras, and so they might run in the middle of the day, but like it doesn't say extra. It just struck me as weird, and they should have come up with something else. Maybe a cop was in the diner, or a cop walks into the diner and he's not in uniform, he's a detective, and he recognizes them from a bulletin that he got at the office. That would have made more sense than them showing this edition of the Daily Bugle that did not have time to be run. So I thought that was dumb. I guess it's a nitpick, but like it stood out to me. Then she goes to Peru by herself, no idea, where she's going, leaves the kids behind for a week. These kids are on the lam. She leaves them behind for a week with Uncle Ben. Now, okay, not the worst thing in the world, but like she's trying to protect them from being killed, and she left them alone for a week. She says, I'll be gone a week. Not for a couple hours to go research something. I'm going to leave the country and go to Peru, the jungle of Peru, where you can't reach me really, and I can't reach you. But here, safeguard these strangers' lives. I'll see you in a week. Like, no, I did not buy that. Then she manages to find the exact spot in the Peruvian jungle 20 years later where her mother died, just based on her mother's notes and stuff. The exact spot. And then she meets the guy who was there when she was born, and he takes her into a cave and she sees a vision of her mother, and he talks with her about her powers. But like, no, she didn't find the exact spot in the Peruvian jungle without a guide by herself, unless she had geographical coordinates, which I seriously doubt. And she didn't have a GPS. It was 2003. And they don't show her with a GPS. So no, that did not happen. So it's just not a good movie. Again, not the worst movie in the world, but it's really dumb. The dialogue is dumb. The characters are one-dimensional. You don't get to see anybody in a super suit except for a couple of seconds, which is fine. You can see a movie about supernatural people who see the future and stuff without seeing costumed individuals. But, the trailer sets it up like one kind of movie, and it's not that movie. The casting was bad. They shouldn't have cast people in their mid-20s to play people under 18. The other thing, this guy has to find these three kids he's never seen before, doesn't know who they are, but he's seen them in a vision. So he tricks a woman into giving him the code for some kind of secret technology that he can hack, like government technology that he can hack, and he hires someone to hack into it for him with her code or whatever. And he's using surveillance cameras, facial recognition technology, and so forth, coordinating with any APBs that might put out stuff like that in 2003, which I don't know how possible that was or wasn't, but that's what he's doing. And he only knows what they look like in the future with masks on. He somehow is able to translate, and they don't show you how, what he saw in his head into an image on a screen that the woman he hires to find the girls then de-ages to see what they would look like as teenagers under the masks. And then she starts using facial rec technology throughout the city, surveillance cameras and stuff, to find them. And over the course of the movie, she finds them and loses them and finds them and loses them. But like, no, he was not able to create a picture from his mind in 2003. And they were not able to de-age them and show what they would look like as teenagers under masks from any image he might even have come up with by saying, okay, this is what they look like and having somebody draw it. No, it doesn't work that way. The only part that would have de-aged is this part and the eyes. He would not have seen what they look like as teenagers. So it was just stupid. And there's other moments where, you know, he's chasing the three girls and he has them in his clutches, but then he goes off to chase Madam Web because she's trying to stop him. So why doesn't he ignore her? She doesn't have superpowers. She can't like attack him, and he does. He has super strength. If he starts chasing her, why? Go after the girl. And then of course, you know, she needs a couple of seconds to make use of the vision that she saw and get him to a certain point where something happens that takes him out. So like he's slow walking like Jason, you know, in the Friday the 13th movies, or like this like a zombie would towards her. I'm gonna get you. Like you're trying to kill her and stop her from helping the kids or keeping them from dying from any precarious situation they might currently be in, which they were, and you're slow walking it. No, you'd be like, I'm gonna get you. It was just so the cinematography could happen, so that the environmental event could occur that takes him out. It needed a couple of seconds, so he slow walked. Bad movie, you guys, bad movie. The sad thing is that they set it up at the end where, okay, now Cassie Webb is blind because she gets blinded during the final fight and in a wheelchair, which matches how the character is in the comics. And they set it up where now she's with these kids because one's father was deported, one's, I don't know, they're basically orphans. So she takes them in. And, you know, they set it up where, okay, in the future, they're going to be a team. She's going to be Madam Web and she's going to be their mentor and they're going to be heroes. And you do get a single frame of them all in their super suits at the end. And they set it up for a sequel, but there's not going to be a sequel because this movie is getting killed in the reviews. And it's bad. It's not going to make any money, unfortunately, and you know, for them. And we're not going to get a sequel where you might have actually seen these people do super stuff. So it's just unfortunate because it could have been good. You know, there were good ideas, and you know, the characters in the comics are good characters, but the execution here is awful. It's just a bad movie. It's a bad movie. It's laughable and just a junky movie, and it's unfortunate because it could have been good. So wait for it to come on streaming. Don't spend money on this. It's not good. Before I repeat myself too much, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.